All right. My man, Derek Wesley. Donald has been in training camp. He's been a training camp warrior. Can't put stock into any of it.
I wouldn't call him a warrior, man. Like he's been making a lot of bad plays in training camp.
Yeah. And King Hook, what's going on? Thank you for joining the live stream. Hey, quick question. Did you guys see the power rankings? Who's power rankings? There's so many out there. Yeah. But the answer is no. We didn't see it. I'll be real. No. Okay, look, man. Panthers Nation, okay? Panthers fans that are in here and they're going to see this later. I want to know, what are your thoughts? I'm not passing any judgment. This is no pointing fingers or anything like that. I'm just curious because we did some videos on Sam Darnold. We did some videos on the draft, and I thought they were pretty, fair, comments about it. Like, we weren't bashing him or anything like that, but, we got some very strong opinions about both Darnold and this draft class. And a lot of people were saying, oh, Darnold just needed a better situation. Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys are so wrong about him. He's gonna thrive, in Carolina and all that stuff. Okay, fine. That's what you feel. But he hasn't shown the ability to play at a high level yet through 3 years. You can chalk it up to whatever you want. He hasn't done it yet. And so far, for me, in training camp, he hasn't shown me the ability to do it still. Yeah. Yes, the O-line's been looking shaky, but that's what we were saying. Like, he wasn't going into a better situation in terms of the O-line, right? You could say better coaching, you could say better receivers and everything around him, but the O-line is worse. And he hasn't shown much in training camp. He hasn't looked the worst, but he hasn't looked great either.
Yeah. And this is kind of what I mean when I say they had blinders on when they just passed on Justin Fields. They also passed on Rashawn Slater, who again is looking really good in Chargers camp from all reports.
Yeah.
Carolina hasn't had a left tackle since Jordan Gross. They used a second round pick on Greg Little. Right now, we mentioned they put out the depth chart. Right now, he's listed as the third string left tackle.
Yeah.
They have rookies competing with journeymen at the guard spots. They have one solid O lineman. So even if you were convinced that Sam Darnold was the guy, you were convinced that he was going to turn it around. It was all Adam Gase. It was all his situation. You are still not putting him in a situation to be successful by taking a corner instead of an offensive lineman, and then following that up in the second round by taking a wide receiver instead of an offensive lineman. Right. They traded back multiple times in that draft, and eventually they traded up to grab Brady Christensen, who looks like right now they have him listed as a backup right tackle. Right, so you're not making moves along that O-line that are going to help you be successful this year, and they're not going to be able to protect Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it's so that's the other part of it too, right? The draft picks. And we didn't bash it. I think I gave it like a C, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. C. I think maybe you gave it a C minus. You're a little bit harsher on it. And we got some strong opinions on that again, right? And some people were saying this is the best draft class that the Panthers have ever had. I don't know how you think that, but I mean, they just felt really strong about all the picks, and it's like, nobody gets them all right. Like, you can't feel that strong about every single pick. And right. I do think J.C. Horn is going to be one of the better corners in the league. I think he's going to be that very early on. But it's good player, wrong pick. That's the whole thing. Good player, wrong pick. Brady Christensen, people are comparing him to Rashawn Slater. He's not Rashawn Slater. Like, Rashawn Slater is Rashawn Slater, right? And you needed him to protect Darnold. If you believe in Darnold, you should want this team to protect him. And they haven't done anything close to that. We don't even know who the starting line is going to be. I mean, let's get into training camp. So far, I mean, what are your takeaways from training camp, or what are you hearing from training camp, B?
From training camp, the offense hasn't looked great. I mean, they've had their days, right? They do have a lot of talent on offense. The wide receivers, with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall, and Shia Smith, they've looked pretty good. Dan Arnold, who I think was a really nice free agent signing at tight end, he's looked pretty good. I guess he's had a nice connection with Sam Darnold. But the O-line has looked terrible, and you can see it in all their 11-on-11 plays. Like, obviously they're not allowed to hit Darnold, but you can see the pressure getting through and what would be sacks. Multiple times would be sacks, but they have to pull up and just run around them and they let the play go on. So the offense hasn't looked great. There's nothing to inspire confidence about the O-line at this point. The defense, I think the defense is set up to have a great year. How much that ultimately will matter is that's again going to be on the offense. If you can't score any points, it doesn't matter how good your defense is.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. I'm looking at some of these comments here. Jimmy Kidwell says Darnold is awful, and I don't see that changing. Look, man, it's hard to argue against that until he shows you that he can do it.
Yeah.
All right. Garnett says Brodny reminds me of a funny video of the skateboarding kid standing outside the window yelling, "Whack" the whole time. Sam Darnold whack, Justin Fields tight. Yeah, well, look, man. Look, Justin Fields has been looking really good.
Yeah.
He's been looking really good. Our guy, Robert Pittman, is here. He says, great show, guys. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you. A donation from our guy Ferris via Streamlabs. He says, Sam Darnold is whack. I didn't know someone could suck more than Daniel Jones.
Whew. Wow. Yeah. I mean, at this point, look, Daniel Jones has shown more than Sam Darnold. He has.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have said that this time last year. I would have said, no, Darnold's better than Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones was awful last year. But there were times he was awful. But there were times where he looked solid. And there's at no point did I see that from Darnold last year. Yes, Adam Gase is one of the worst coaches ever. But, I mean, you got to show something at some point. You have to show something at some point.
Yeah.
So you guys did make a signing, though, at linebacker.
Yeah, so that's one thing we didn't talk about. They're linebackers right now. You've got Hassan Reddick, who was just signed this past free agency period. You've got Shaq Thompson, who's been there for several years, got the big contract, who's been a good player for Carolina. And they had signed Denzel Perryman in the middle. And it hasn't really been going great. There are a lot of people who think that Jermaine Carter has just flat out outplayed him. And Jermaine Carter is listed as the starter. But Denzel Perryman, being Denzel Perryman, has missed some time. He's hurt. And, he's hurt again right now. So they went out and they signed Josh Bynes, who a lot of the Ravens fans listening will probably remember. He played in Baltimore a couple of years ago, played for Cincinnati last year, had kind of a down year, but has been a very solid linebacker throughout his career. And, my instinct is to just say, they're just signing him to get through the preseason. But I think Denzel might be in trouble.
I think Josh Bynes is going to take that job. Josh Bynes is a very solid player. In fact, when we picked him up, we picked up him and LJ Fort at the same time. And I thought we were set at linebacker. I didn't see the need to go and draft a linebacker after that because he was solid. He was solid last year for the Bengals, right? He's not a great player, but he's a disciplined player. He's a good tackler. And that's all you really need, especially when you have a really good defense. You guys have a really good defense it's looking like. So, he took that job. he took that job. Let's see. Josh Bynes made the Super Bowl saving tackle in 2012. Yep, that's right. Yeah. Somebody asked about Trimble. I think that was Ferris. He wants to know about Tommy Trimble.
Tommy Trimble right now is listed as the third tight end. He's behind Dan Arnold and Ian Thomas. And again, he was a third round rookie, right? So, he's had his ups and his downs. I wouldn't be too, I'm not too critical or upset about him being the third tight end. I think he'll pass Ian Thomas pretty quickly. Like Ian Thomas has had a couple years to really blossom and show that he is the player that some people thought he was going to be. He was a great athlete, but never really turned into a great player. So I think that's kind of the veteran respect, right? Like it's the first depth chart, and we're putting all the vets up top. I think Trimble will be the number 2 tight end there before too long.
Okay, all right. So but Dan Arnold is the number 1 guy. He's been having a good camp so far. Mm-hmm. So, and again, man, like this, if we're just going down the list of the rookies, how they're looking in training camp. It's just training camp. They haven't played a preseason game that's coming up this weekend, and obviously they got to play the season. But I'm just curious because based off of the draft, we got slammed for saying this is a C, this is a C grade draft. I just want to know what your initial thoughts are about these players because, J.C. Horn's been having a great camp. Outside of that, Brady Christensen, we don't know what's going on with him. It's been pretty quiet. What's going on, Zeke Okage? And there are spots open on that O line, and we're not hearing about him.
With him, I think it's a matter of do they want him to compete at guard? Like realistically, do they want him to be a starting guard? Or are they holding him as that swing tackle backup kind of player? Because right now he's listed as a backup to Taylor Moton. Yeah. Obviously, he's not going to unseat Taylor Moton, right? But if Taylor moves over to left tackle, Brady could get the starting job there. So I think maybe they're kind of holding him out of the guard competition, a bit, not letting him focus there, so that he's ready to play right tackle if they need him.
Yeah. And Derek says Burns Defensive Player of the Year. He could very well be. For my Ravens fans in here, if you don't know about Brian Burns, you're about to find out. Just Allo, what's going on? Just Allo. He says, how has Christian McCaffrey been, or has he been healthy? Yes, he's been healthy.
He's been all right. Honestly, he's getting the vet days here and there, but there's no problem with Christian. He doesn't need training camp practices, and they'd be wise to not, try to wear him down too much in the summer. You shouldn't see much of him in the preseason at all. They can get Bonifon and Chuba Hubbard some run, but Christian doesn't need it. He's ready to go.
Raven Ron wants to know, is Burns getting the green dot? Do edge rushers get green dots? It's usually that's usually linebacker or safety, right? Middle linebacker or safety.
I think you can give it to whoever, but I wouldn't expect the one of the edges to get it.
Yeah. Who will get it? I don't know.
At this point, it's probably my guess would be Shaq Thompson.
Shaq Thompson, yeah.
But we'll see.
Oh, my man, Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin's been having a good camp as well. I think Jeremy Chin is going to build off of last year. You got a good player there, man.
Yeah.
You got a good player.
I was absolutely wrong on Jeremy Chin. I thought he was going to be a bust. I was like, why didn't you just take Isaiah Simmons and draft Matabike later on? But Chin has been nothing but a playmaker since he's been there.
I read that one. Derek says he said that they're a bottom 5 team. He'll die on this hill. That's interesting because I don't know. Like the O-line just has to be solid. Darnold just has to be solid. And I'm not saying like they're going to go to the playoffs, but they're not going to be a bottom 5 team if that happens because the defense I think is going to be really good. And you have playmakers on that offense: Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. Right, like you have guys that can, some really good skill positions on that offense.
Yeah, but they have 2 glaring weaknesses, and it just so happens those are the 2 most important parts of a football team: at quarterback and offensive line.
Yeah. But and I'm hearing people say, "Hey, look, it's just training camp. You can't just take everything away from training camp," which is true. Mm-hmm. But if they were looking good right now, you guys would be hyped about that,
right?
And they're not looking good. J.C. Horn's looking good, but
I would not expect both of those things being Sam Darnold and the offensive line to work out well this season. I wouldn't expect both of them. Maybe one of them. Maybe the line comes together. I would expect them to start playing better as the season goes on. I'm not really expecting that from Darnold.
And shots fired here from my guy Davon. Says Giants defense was really good last year too. Sorry, Ferris. And Ferris will argue they were one thrown game away from making the playoffs. Okay, one rigged game. All right. Anything else we want to wrap up? So
what's going on, David? Thank you for coming through.
Yeah, thanks for coming
question.
Through.
Our thoughts on Darnold. My thoughts on Darnold are he's not good, and he hasn't been good for the first 3 years of his career. And people say, oh, well, he's getting away from Gase. He needs a new situation, a fresh start. He's getting a fresh start, but it's not a better situation. I think they're setting him up to fail with the O-line, and he is going to fail.
Well, hold on. Let's add a little more context to that because both of us did agree that getting Sam Darnold wouldn't be a bad move for this franchise, but not as the starter, right? Not as a sure starter. It was one of those kick the tires on the guy.
Yeah, I said take a flyer on Sam Darnold, meaning trade a third-day draft pick, get him on the roster, and see what he has while bringing in a starting quarterback. They could have done that. Justin Fields fell to them at 8, but they didn't.
Yeah, and just Alice says Panthers should have kept Bridgewater. I agree. They should have kept Cam.
Yeah.
They said Cam's looking good, which is no shock to us. He should have never have left. And, you go and get Bridgewater, and Bridgewater is supposed to be that gap QB for you, and then you get rid of him, and you're just progressively getting worse at that position.
I don't know what we think about PJ Walker. I think that he's a typical backup where they're a fan favorite. I think he's an entertaining guy to watch. He's fun to watch.
Yeah,
but I don't think he has much of a future as an NFL quarterback, honestly.
No, but I think he will. I think he will win that backup starting job because it's between him and Will Grier. I think Will Grier is on his way out.
Will Grier should be on his way out because they never should have drafted Will Grier.
And that's another one. Look. I
think PJ Walker can be a solid backup in the NFL. I don't think he's more than that, really.
Will Grier was another one that a lot of Panthers fans were excited about because I think people were ready for Cam to go, and they looked at Will Grier, and he got some high grades from Draft Twitter, but they were like, that's a great pick because if Cam gets hurt, he can come right in and take over, and he got buried down the depth chart and never worked his way up. Houston Roughneck legend PJ Walker. That's right. That's right. So, but I think he'll win that backup job for sure. All right. So
he says he was a turnover machine in college. I don't know how anyone thought he'd be good. Well, you see what you like. People see what they want to see in college. They see the strengths. They see the good parts. They see what they imagine as their potential. Right. You don't really focus in on the flaws so much.
Right. Rayveron is asking about Terrace Marshall. He looks like he's a work in progress.
Yeah,
which is why we weren't really that high on him as far as the Ravens drafting them, because we're looking for a starter, and he's going to need a little bit more. I don't think he's going to be bad, but I think he needs some more time to develop.
I think he can step in and take over that number 3 job and do an admirable job there. But yeah, you don't want to be relying on him. He's had some drops in training camp, but he's also had some good days. So, it's just not a thing of you don't want to put him in a situation like Baltimore where there's going to be all this pressure. He's gone to a team in Carolina where nobody's really looking at him. He's going to be the number 3 receiver, arguably the number 4 receiver if you count Christian McCaffrey. So he'll be able to develop and
he might be further down depth chart this year. Omar Bayless is having a good camp. Shai Smith is having a good camp.
I don't think that they'll. I think those guys will have to absolutely force their way on the field ahead of Terrace Marshall. Like,
I don't know, man. They're looking pretty good.
Terrace Marshall is Joe Brady's guy.
Yeah,
he coached him in college. They drafted him in the 2nd round over offensive line, and he's going to be that guy. They're going to put him in there, and they're going to let him. They're going to give him every opportunity. They're going to make him show them that he can't do it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Our guy Jason Ridley. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. He says he's here now. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate that. All right, the Ravens weren't high on Marshall either. No, they weren't. They shouldn't have been. Well, a lot of teams weren't.
David, I'm a Panthers fan. Jose's a Ravens fan.
Yes. That's why you're going to see a lot of Panthers and Ravens content where the Panthers play on Sunday. They're the only game on Sunday. We're going to be covering that. So it might be a little bit late. I'm not sure what time the game starts.
And the other thing on Terrace Marshall is, he had the I believe it was a foot injury, not knee.
Yes,
I believe it was his foot, but that scared a lot of teams away. And you haven't obviously heard much about it at camp because it's more of a long-term concern.
Yeah,
but yeah. So with Terrace Marshall, I think it's a wait and see. I think you'll get a decent return on him in the short term, but we'll see.
Texas fans. Yeah, okay.